We've got exciting storylines heading into the spring in the world of college football. Some of the top, we got quarterback changes for major programs: Ohio State, Alabama, Notre Dame, Oregon, just to name a few. Bryce Underwood arriving in Michigan. A lot of money getting sent to the young buck over there. Arch Manning taking over as Texas QB1. We got a lot of SEC coaches feeling the heat before the season even starts. Guys like Kalen DeBoer, Sam Pittman, Hugh Freeze, Brian Kelly, just to name a few. And how about this one? Bill Belichick going back to school. Hello, North Carolina. Danny Kanell back with us here on HQ. All right, we're going to start with all this movement going on. Some of the top college programs with new quarterbacks at the helm. Give me some teams that have new changes at quarterback that you're looking forward to seeing.
I mean, Jenny, there hasn't been a name that's overtaken college football maybe since Tim Tebow without having played very much, and it's Arch Manning. I mean, that's where I'm looking first, is that Texas Longhorn job that he's been there waiting in the wings behind Quinn Ewers and really comes in ready to step in to his own. And the thing that I think even has Texas fans more exciting, it's one thing to play well in the spring game, which he did last year, but this season with Quinn Ewers missing a couple games, he was able to step up. He showcased a running ability that everybody was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know a Manning could run that way. And he had a 70-yard touchdown run. He's out there making plays, coming in with little packages, contributing against Texas A&M with a big touchdown. So I think Texas is the team that I'm looking at with so much excitement, as is the college football world, in anticipation of, is Arch Manning going to live up to the last name of his grandfather, of his uncles, of everybody else out there? And by all indications to this point, he absolutely has lived up to it so far. So I think that is the one that kind of jumps out to you right off the get-go.
I want to ask you more about Arch in just a second, but another name that has a lot of pressure on them, the Bryce Underwood story. It's already been wild out there. Top recruit arriving in Michigan. What can we expect from him day one coming in?
Well, first, I do think Sharon Moore is going to have him compete to win the starting job, but I do think he does that. I do think he'll win the starting job. And I think what you'll see is probably a return to the run game, which they've always wanted to do, and that's a carryover from Jim Harbaugh. And if you remember, Jenny, when J.J. McCarthy was there as the starter, he wasn't exactly throwing for 300 yards every game. In fact, that was more a rarity. More of the time, he was playing that role of game manager. So I think early Bryce Underwood will be kind of eased into a very run-heavy system where even he runs the football some. You work a little play-action pass, and they kind of get back to what they do so well, which is run-based offense, game manager at quarterback, and play outstanding defense, which is a reason why I think they are sort of a sleeper to contend for the national championship. This still is a team which beat Ohio State 4 years in a row, including last year with atrocious quarterback play. So if Bryce Underwood steps forward just a little bit, manages the game, gives you some resemblance of a pass game, I think Michigan could be a sleeper pick in the Big Ten.
All right, so it seems like it's going to be Bryce's job potentially, but there is going to be a quarterback competition over there, and there's a lot of other quarterback competitions going out there. Some of these top programs with new quarterbacks that are going to be battling it out. I want to pull up a list right here. What sticks out from this list for you, Danny?
So some of them I don't think are real competitions. I'll just say that. John Mateer coming from Washington State with his offensive coordinator, I think that one's probably more just in name only. But I'll say this, Julian Sayin at Ohio State, I mean, this is the defending national championship, stepping into the shoes that Will Howard, steps out of. He's still going to have Jeremiah Smith. I know they lost both running backs and they lost a lot of pieces, but in a system where the quarterbacks always have put up really big numbers, the buzz around Columbus has been Julian Sayin looks the part. Remember, he signed with Alabama. Then when Nick Saban retired, took that opportunity to come to Columbus. Everybody I've talked to there said he has looked the part. So I think he's going to step into a really good situation where it's almost gotten to the point where you can plug and play because there's so much talent. And I know you've got Chip Kelly off to the NFL and replacing it with Brian Hartline, but I don't think there'll be too much churn as far as scheme, what they want to do. So I'm really excited for Julian Sayin. I do think he wins that job. And another one that was up there was Colorado. I mean, Coach Prime is not going anywhere. Yes, Shador is and Travis Hunter, but he's got to break in a new quarterback. And there's going to be a competition there that I think is going to unfold pretty interestingly. His biggest prize recruit was Julian Lewis in the high school rankings. We'll see, does he live up to the hype? And also, how do these new quarterbacks, how do they withstand the pressure of college football? It's a whole different animal than anything they've been used to, even all the attention they've gotten in high school in the 7-on-7 circuits. Place like Colorado, the bar has been set by Shedeur. How does the next quarterback live up to that? I'm very curious to watch and see how it unfolds.
It's a lot of pressure for these young guys, and there's also a lot of pressure on these SEC coaches, all the coaches in general. But the SEC, you can really circle a lot of the programs over there. You have guys like Brent Venables with Oklahoma. You have Hugh Freeze, Auburn, Sam Pittman, Arkansas. He's been on the hot seat for quite some time now. Billy Napier with Florida. Brian Kelly, a name you wouldn't think would be on this list. Mark Stoops also been on the hot seat. Who are you most worried for when it comes to these guys?
Probably Sam Pittman, just because it's been so close already. And he did have a pretty good season last year, 7-6. And I'll say this, Jenny, you know this better than anybody. In the SEC, you are one bad year away from the hot seat. Like, it doesn't matter kind of who you are. It was only really Nick Saban that was exempt from that list. But I am worried about Sam Pittman. I love him. I think he's a great fit for Arkansas. But I do feel like they're the most vulnerable out there that could have a season that doesn't meet expectations. And I've already, some Arkansas fans already wanted him out this past season and were upset that he was able to get to a bowl and win one and then not see him gone. But I'll tell you the name at the top of that list, Brent Venables, massive expectations. I just saw some, polls released and rankings about Oklahoma having the toughest schedule in the country this upcoming season. So it's not going to be easy. He's made the decision to go over and take over play calling duties as the defensive coordinator. That's always that sign of, there's a little bit of panic in the air. I like him. Maybe he's better suited. And I think I like him as the defensive coordinator calling those plays. But you've got a lot of change. You're bringing in, we mentioned John Mateer earlier from Washington State. And the Oklahoma expectation, what they got used to was dominating in the Big 12, 10, 11, 12-win seasons. They haven't even come close to that in the SEC. And you know what else doesn't help? The fact that Texas, one of their biggest rivals, has been back-to-back SEC Final Four appearances. That puts a little bit more pressure on Brent Venables. So it's kind of these usual suspects. I would agree with almost all of those on those lists. Billy Napier comes to mind as well at Florida. The expectations have increased, but the win total hasn't gone up that much. So another one where these are pressure-packed jobs. They make a ton of money. If they fall short of those expectations, you could see a carousel this year in the SEC and see some changeover that we haven't seen here recently.
A quick note on Sam Pittman. I always said, I know it's all about the W's, but if I had a son, I would want him playing for a coach like Pittman. He's one of the absolute best out there. All right, one coach who has the college world at his fingertips. We don't know exactly how it's going to play out. Bill Belichick, do you think he's in for a rude awakening of sorts in his first spring at North Carolina, or do you think this is just going to be like smooth sailing? Bill's going to come back in and change the entire program in the world of college football?
Jenny, I don't know. And I love it. Like, I really don't. I don't know what to expect from North Carolina, coached by Bill Belichick. This is one of the most surprising hires we've seen since I've been covering the sport. Like, it was something unthinkable. If you would have said this a year ago, it'd have been like, what are you talking about? Bill Belichick's not going to go back to college football. And North Carolina, of all places, a basketball school? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And yet I love that he's there. I do think the guy can coach, right? 6 Super Bowl rings, greatest NFL coach of all time. But how does he adapt to the college game, to the college player, to the college mindset, and to some of the restrictions on your time? I mean, there still is a 20-hour rule, which we can argue that and debate that, because now that they are getting paid, I think they should be allowed to work a little bit more. But I'm curious to see, does he have to draw back and pull back on what he wants to do as a defensive mind? Because he was great at confusing opposing offenses, but that puts a lot on the player's shoulders. How does he manage that? We've already seen how he's built the staff. The roster, it's not exactly littered with 5-star talent, but I did notice he's in our 24/7 transfer portal rankings, he's 14th overall, 3rd in the ACC. So they do have some pretty talented players coming in. Quarterback's a question mark. But I would say this, the guy didn't forget how to coach, and I think he's going to succeed at North Carolina this year. I mean, Mac Brown was getting 7 and 8 wins a year. I would expect that to continue, but the reason they hired him was to get to that 9, 10, 11 games and challengers for ACC conference titles, which that I'm a little bit suspect on. I need to see how it goes year one. But I'm excited to see what he's going to do.
You got to imagine there's probably a lot of kids that are looking forward to the season after, seeing how this all plays out with Belichick at the helm and then making moves from there, depending on how it goes. Danny Kanell with the latest in college football. You can also check out the Cover 3 podcast, our crew back to break down the future of the ACC following their settlement and also discussing which teams need to replace the most NFL talent. Scan that QR code and check it out now.